What is going on, guys? Cam here. Today I am making a very quick video on how I make cold brew coffee. So I don't know if a lot of you guys know, but cold brew is pretty popular. It's grown in popularity over the past few years, more so with like Starbucks and maybe buying it in a can and whatnot. But I don't know how many people know this, but you can actually make it at home, and it's very easy to make. Pretty simple, and it has so many different benefits that I love, and I have it every single morning because of that. So I thought I'd just teach you guys how I make my cold brew, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So I think some of the big benefits, if we do go over the benefits of cold brew, is it's simple to make. It's much more or less acidic than a hot coffee, because it is brewed in cold, like water. You can brew it in either room temperature water or cold water, but you don't brew it in hot water, so it doesn't release the acidity out of coffee. So that's like the acidity that you get if you do like pour over with hot coffee or even do an espresso. It's more acidic. With cold brew, you don't get that. It's also got more caffeine compared to a hot cup of coffee. And then the other big benefit that I really like is you can store it in your fridge for prolonged periods of time. I think up to about 2 weeks. So you're not making coffee every morning. You can literally just pour it and then drink it and you're good to go. And I guess the other great thing is because it is cold, it will never entirely like warm up. Like depending on the day, it could, if it's a really hot day, it could warm up a little bit. But compared to a hot cup of coffee, like once it cools off, it kind of doesn't taste the same. But with cold brew, you can kind of just keep it and babysit it and drink it throughout the day. So let's get right into how to make it. So the first thing you will need, this is the way I make it anyway, is a really large glass jar like this. I'm not entirely sure how many cups this is. I believe it's about maybe 12 cups of water can fit in here. I don't know how that translates to ounces or whatnot, but I like to make it in a big jar like this because it makes me about 2 weeks worth of cold brew between me and my wife. Actually, between me and my wife, it's about a week's worth of cold brew, which is probably about 14 glasses if you think about it. So I like to make it in a big jar like this because I make it once, I don't have to keep making it over and over, and then we have a lot of cold brew for the rest of the week. So you're gonna need a big jar like this, you're gonna need filtered water, you're also gonna need some coffee, which I have here. So this right here is the coffee I use. I buy pre-ground coffee just because, quite honestly, I don't have like a grinder. Although you could use pretty much any grinder that you have, because with cold brew coffee, the coffee doesn't have to be ground very fine. It can be a little more coarse. So if you just have like a regular kind of cheap grinder, you don't need a burr grinder essentially. So you could just use like an everyday kind of coffee grinder. I use this coffee right here, which is the Kicking Horse Three Sisters. It's a medium roast. I find this gives me the best tasting cold brew, period. So you're gonna need ground coffee. I just bought mine ground. You can grind it on your own if you want to. A measuring cup. I just like to use a standard cup. And then also I got this, which is a bamboo stirring stick. So I've read a lot of stuff online. It says that it's actually best to stir the cold brew once you have everything in with something that's wooden, in particular bamboo, because they say that if you stir it with something metallic, it can affect the taste. So, got it off Amazon. It wasn't that expensive and I have it every day, so why not invest in it? And the very last thing is you're gonna need filtered water. There's a lot of people who make cold brew honestly with bottled water, which I think is a little excessive. I have a filter in the fridge, so I just pour the water out of there. But if you have like a Brita filter or something like that, you can just put the water through that and use that water. But using filtered water is very, very important. It does affect the taste of the coffee and the overall brew at the end of the day. So it's very important to have filtered coffee. So First thing we're gonna do is, my ratio for making cold brew is I like to use a 5-to-1 ratio of water to coffee. So 5 parts water, 1 part coffee, and then I let that soak for about 24 hours. You can, I mean, technically you can soak it from anywhere from 12 to 24, but I just like the taste and quite honestly, like the body of the coffee at 24 hours. So that's what I do. So with that ratio, you can make it any way you'd like. In here, I do 3 cups of ground coffee, and then I fill the whole thing up with water. I find that that's how kind of this container works. So, all right, so I'm gonna start with the ground coffee here. I have a little bit of coffee left over, and I get them in these, you know, these bags. So one thing I don't do is I don't buy my coffee in larger bags. I get them in these smaller 10-ounce bags, just because it's better to, like, you know, your coffee stays fresher if you buy them in smaller bags and then open them as you need them versus getting a big bag and keeping it open. So I'll just do this. I'll do this right here so you can see it here. So we're just gonna completely fill this up. I actually pour it in like this, actually on top of the container, just in case if anything spills, it spills right into there. So that's 1. There's 2. And the last cup right here, 3. So, I mean, I do like I mentioned before, I do like a 5-to-1 ratio. You could switch this up and do however much you would like. You can change up the ratio depending on what your tastes are. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it doesn't really matter if you're a little over or a little under, as long as it's pretty close. But at the end of the day, it's your own taste. If you want to do more, do more. If you want to brew it for less time with more coffee, you could do that. But the general rule of thumb is you don't want to go over 24 hours. You can start to get a really bitter cold brew at that point. So however much you do, however much coffee you put in here, whatever your ratio is, make sure you don't go over 24 hours. So once you have all the coffee in here, you want to just fill up your container or whatever it may be that you're making this in with water. So I'm just grabbing it from the fridge. That's why I have this blender bottle here. All right, so for my recipe, this is going to be filled to the top here. So once you have it all filled up, you want to take your stirring stick and just stir everything in nicely. The point of this is just to make sure all of the coffee beans that you've thrown in here are completely soaked, right? Makes sense, right? Obviously you want to make sure nothing is sitting on the top dry. You want to make sure it's all completely in there. So give it a really, really nice stir. And if you are making it in like a clear jar like this, you will see that sometimes the coffee can float on the top. So you want to make sure it's just completely immersed like this. It should give you that nice dark color. So once it's all stirred up, you just throw a lid on it, and that's pretty much it. You throw it in the fridge for 24 hours, set a timer or a reminder on your phone to take it out, and just pop it in the fridge. You can also just brew this on a countertop if you want, or at room temperature outside somewhere. That's perfectly fine. It'll give you the same result. I just like to throw it in the fridge. That's my own preference. So I'm gonna just toss this in the fridge. So the very last thing you actually need to know with the cold brew is once it's done brewing, what do you do with it really? So there's a lot of stuff that I read out there. They talk about like draining it through a cheesecloth, which I did. I did that the very first time and I absolutely hated it. It was such a mess. And like there was coffee everywhere and it didn't like go through properly and everything. What I do is I just simply throw it through one of these, which is a, what do they call this? Like a sieve? I don't know. I mean, the upside to this is it was very quick and easy. The downside is it doesn't fully filter out all of the coffee like grounds. So I'm usually left with like a small amount of like coffee ground sediment at the bottom of my dispenser. So that's the only downside. If you do want to do it with a cheesecloth, that'll work great. It'll give you the least amount of sediment. But for me, I find it just floats to the bottom anyway, and I don't end up drinking it anyway. So it doesn't really make a difference. The cost and reward kind of thing is not, I mean, it's not beneficial to me, so I don't do that. But speaking of which, what I do is I actually got one of these, I guess, juice pitchers or dispensers from Walmart. They're not that expensive at all. And I just like filter the coffee through the sieve and pour it into here. And then I have this dispenser in my fridge ready to go. So I literally just open up my fridge, pour out my coffee, close the fridge, and that's it. I used to do them in like mason jars, but quite honestly, when you're making so much cold brew coffee, to just pour it into one dispenser, like a large dispenser like this, and then just have it in the fridge is, you know, the most convenient and best thing. So I'd highly recommend picking up one of these. You can just store it in the fridge itself as well, so it stays cold, and just pour it as you want to drink it. So that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed learning how to make cold brew with me. Let me know if you try it out, if you have a recipe that you use. Maybe if you're trying cold brew for the first time, let me know. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And I think that's pretty much it. I don't know how to wrap up this video, so I am just going to leave now. Bye.